Hello and welcome to Michael's Minty Music for today. Today we review Sara Bareilles' 2020 soundtrack album, More Love, songs from Little Voice Season 1. I haven't seen this show, but the album is pretty decent, kind of out of context, so that's good. This is the track listing, and these are the tracks I added to my playlist, 4 out of 10 here, so 1 under half. This album is alright. It starts off pretty strong actually, and has some good tracks in the middle that kind of help carry it to the end. So it's not a bad listen. Still, most of the tracks sound pretty similar and aren't super interesting on their own. In the context of the show, most of these songs are probably pretty good, but on their own, they're just kind of fine, not anything spectacular. The genre here is kind of a slow pop. Most of the songs here are sort of piano and acoustic guitar ballads, which work pretty well for most, although there's definitely a lack of variety here. It's all kind of the same. The flow is alright, but there isn't a lot to work with since most of the songs sound pretty similar. Still, the opening couple of tracks are a bit quicker and a little bit more upbeat, and then around the halfway point, the album transitions into the slower, kind of slowest stuff. The two title tracks, More Love and Little Voice, are pretty different actually, but they're both pretty good title tracks and show off how kind of small differences can help an album along quite well actually. There were no singles released before the album, and no songs here were particularly popular on the radio or anything. My favorite track here is definitely that main title track, More Love. It was written by Bareilles and Jack Antonoff, whose work I generally like. It's got some synth stuff, and it's definitely the most upbeat, kind of poppy track here, although it's not so that it feels out of place on the album. It's just kind of a little bit different. The third track, King of the Lost Boys, is also quite good, and it kind of shows off the album a bit better, I think. I rank this album 6th out of Bareilles' 7 albums, so only over one other album here. I like most of her more sort of traditional work better. This is a pretty good soundtrack album, but it can't really compare to the variety and flow of her sort of regular albums. Still, I do like this one better than What's Inside, songs from Waitress, which is her other soundtrack album. I feel that, out of context, More Love is definitely better from a kind of music quality perspective. More Love is higher quality and more consistent than What's Inside. What's Inside also weirdly doesn't flow as well as More Love. Probably because it's a musical, the songs are kind of essential to the story, so a good chunk of them don't really work out of context. Still, both of the albums have a couple of tracks that are really good, so there isn't a really big gap in between them. I just kind of prefer More Love here. Additionally, this album doesn't take my top spot from 2020. That goes to The Strokes' 2020 album, The New Abnormal, which is definitely better than More Love. Even if it wasn't sort of a soundtrack versus a normal album, I think The Strokes would easily take it here. This isn't really a very good competition. The New Abnormal is a really great album, and More Love is kind of just alright. So, thank you for watching. Next up is the Beths 2020 album, Jump Rope Gazers. I really liked their first album. I thought they did pretty well, so I'm interested to hear what they followed up with. So stay tuned for that, and as always, stay minty.